It's time to step behind the scenes and take a closer look at the Owen Sound Attack. This is Bear Tracker Weekly. Here's your host, JC Coots.
Well, hello and welcome to Season 2, Episode 13 of the Bear Tracker Weekly podcast. This week, we are releasing the podcast episode a little bit early on Friday, December 12th. Of course, the Owen Sound Attack are on the road this weekend on their Northern Ontario trip. And things did not start well on Thursday night in Barrie. I was actually planning to go to the game in Barrie on Thursday night to do interviews and everything after the game and put together a little more content for this week's podcast. Unfortunately, the weather chose not to cooperate on Thursday night. We got blasted with snow squalls through Grey and Bruce, and then Barrie and area, Collingwood, all getting hit with snow squalls. I think they got even worse than we got. So I decided, you know what, I should probably play it safe and stay home. And I believe the team bus was about an hour late getting into Barrie. At least that was mentioned on the Barrie Colts broadcast on Thursday night. So it sounds like it wasn't the best drive for the Owen Sound Attack either. They lose 6-1 to Barrie with Trenton Bennett in the net. Of course, Carter George now with Team Canada at their training camp in Niagara Falls. So Bennett got the first game. It is early on Friday as I record this, so I'm not sure who's starting tonight, but I'm going to guess Matthew Kaprowski will get his start against the lowly Sudbury Wolves. That's where the Attack road trip stops next in Sudbury on a Friday night. And the Attack Pack, the fan club, is on its way as we speak to Sudbury to cheer on the team. They will then head to Sault Ste. Marie, as will the rest of the Attack, for a Sunday afternoon game at 2 o'clock. Should be a nice long bus ride home for from Sault Ste. Marie, but hopefully it will be a happy bus ride for both the players and the fans who are making the trip this weekend. On the podcast this week with the Attack on the road, I was able to grab a couple of Attack media, current and former. Our good friend Adrien Mousseau is back for another episode of Moose on the Loose. He's going to be here later on the podcast. And Greg Cowan of the Owen Sound Sun Times. Greg does such a phenomenal job with his articles in the Sun Times. He's also great to follow on Twitter. He's a very funny guy. Haven't really had a chance to talk to him one-on-one since I interviewed him last season on this podcast, but there's been some developments, as you, I'm sure, have heard with the Owen Sound Attack. We're getting closer to the OHL trade deadline, and also it was announced this week that Tristan Delisle has committed to Michigan Tech, starting as early as possibly next season. So that obviously sent some shockwaves through the Owen Sound Attack and the Attack fans this week. So wanted to talk to Greg about his sense and talking to Dale DeGray, what he thinks is going on with both those big stories. We had a great conversation, which we will get to right now. This is my conversation with Greg Cowan from earlier today on Friday, December 12th. Well, with the Attack on the road this week, I tried to get the media room roundtable together as best as I could. Everybody was busy, though, because it's Friday. We're recording this. Taylor Swift released a bunch of new Eras stuff, and the only one not watching it was Greg Cowan of the Owen Sound Sun Times. So, Greg, welcome to an abridged media room roundtable this week.
Thank you very much. You know, in my head, this is the roundtable I always dreamed of.
Just one-on-one over Zoom. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to be able to do this. I know that you're always busy covering not just hockey, but the Owen Sound Sun Times has you covering a lot of things these days, so I know that your time is valuable. But I wanted to ask you, because you've had the opportunity very recently to talk to Dale DeGray about a couple of different things that are popping up with the Owen Sound Attack. Based on your article I read the other day, it sounded like Dale was a little bit abrupt to hear from you. He maybe wasn't you caught him at kind of a bad time, I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know what other general managers are like to deal with, but Dale is one of the most accessible people I've worked with in this business. Like, he gave me a cell phone number the first day I showed up in Owen Sound. I remember Sean Bisson was the media point man then. Dale pulled me into his office and basically said, like, forget Sean, here's my cell number. Just call me whenever you need me, which was awesome. And I've taken advantage of that. You know, call him. I try not to be a nuisance, but if I need to talk to him or need to get a kind of a sense of how things are going in his world, give him a shout. And typically he answers the phone. Greg, how's it going? That's very typical hello. This time it was Greg, a tone that made me made me laugh immediately. So I said, bad time, I can call back. But then he just lamented about how much he'd been on the phone that morning because it's trade deadline time. Plus, he had a conference call for the league. But it's just that time of year. I love this time of year covering the league. There's so much going on. You're getting a third of the way through the season, so you have the teams that are contenders, the teams that are maybe looking to ship off players, and you got general managers who are calling each other like it's the crazy time of year, and you got Christmas right around the corner, so it's an exciting time.
The two of the things that you asked him about, let's start with the easier one. Although it's not easy, it's still kind of heavy news. Was the news broke this week that Tristan Delisle has committed to Michigan Tech, which I was today years old when I learned that Michigan Tech was also a school. I had just heard about the Wolverines and the Spartans, but Tristan Delisle has committed with them. Now, I believe the commitment says next year, although I was watching the broadcast from Barrie on Thursday night, and he was interviewed during the first intermission, and he said possibly next year or the next couple of years. So Tristan himself kind of left the door open just a little bit there, which I think Attack fans can breathe a little sigh of relief coming straight from the horse's mouth. But what was the impression you got from him? And obviously a pretty happy time for him to know what the next step in his hockey journey is going to be.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the thing, like you mentioned, not knowing when he's leaving specifically. And Matt Hermes interviewed him on the radio broadcast, Barrie Radio, as well in Barrie, and got the same answer. It might be next year, it might be the year after. But if I'm Dale DeGray, that's almost more maddening in a way, because you're trying to plan for your team in the years to come, and you don't know if a guy's going to be there or not. I'm almost would rather have a clearer date. And there's more guys in that boat, right? Like Pierce Mbuyi has the commitment to Penn State. You don't know exactly when that shoe is going to drop. Michael Deck, I was speaking to him. He's in Erie now, but he had the commitment to Cornell, which on paper is for next season. And when that trade was made, maybe that was one of the factors. Okay, we'll bring somebody in who isn't going to leave next year. But now it sounds like his commitment might get pushed to a season further on. So it's just the uncertainty of when these players are going to leave for the NCAA, I think, is making it hard for general managers across the league. It's not just in Owen Sound. I know it's something they talk about in trade talks, like, oh, well, I don't want to put that guy in the deal because he's got an NCAA commitment. Or somebody will say, actually, he's not a school guy. We think this guy's going to stick in the OHL, but how do you know? You can never be certain. And I think that's one thing that really hit the Owen Sound attack square in the jaw this month, these last few weeks. And it's a good lesson for everyone. And it's great. Like, that's one thing Dale was cautious to say too. Like, even though it hurts, it stings when it's your team. He said it's great for the players to have more options and their families to be able to make the best decision in their hockey careers. And don't worry, they're not going to take away your hockey reporter card for not knowing about Michigan Tech. I had to fire up the Google machine too. I was pretty impressed. It looks like a beautiful campus.
Yeah, you mentioned a lot of players there talking about the university commits, and you're talking about a lot of talented Attack players, which I'm sure Attack fans right now are starting to sweat a little bit. But I do want to say that just because you're committed doesn't mean you go. Remember, about a year ago, almost to the day, the first player to sign with the NCAA was Kitchener Rangers goaltender Jackson Parsons. I happen to have him. He's the only time I've ever had an opposing player on this podcast was last year after that news came out, and I talked to him here on the show to kind of get his thoughts on it. Where is he now? He's not at the university he committed to. 3 weeks ago, he got a shutout for his first shutout in the AHL with the Belleville Senators. So he's a teammate of Landon Hookie. So just because you signed doesn't mean you're going. And I think I can say this because Dale said it publicly at one of the Q&As earlier this year. He was asked about the Pierce Mbuyi commitment, and he said he considered it to be more of a matter of, well, the Mbuyi family gets hounded every day by different schools saying, do you want to commit? Do you want to commit? So eventually they just committed to one, being Penn State. It doesn't mean it'll happen, but it could happen. So I wouldn't attack fans start to panic thinking all these guys are gone for sure, because it might not be the case.
Yeah, hockey fans that maybe aren't as well versed in the NCAA in terms of following, maybe they're not college football fans or college basketball fans. If you are following those sports, you know these commitments are worth the paper they're written on. Players are changing schools every day, taking new paths. Maybe something falls through to the schools too. You know, coaches are fired, and then everything's up in the air. It's really the wild, wild west, and hockey's just kind of, Canadian hockey at least, is just kind of starting to learn about it. It'll be interesting to see how it progresses. I know the commissioner, Brian Crawford's talked about, wanting to put in some more hard and fast rules about how these transfers and thing goes, because we're going to see it here in a few weeks, I believe, where players are coming back from the NCAA to the OHL, and maybe vice versa. A player in the QMJHL just announced that he's leaving mid-season to go the college route. So it gets a little wild, wild west when players up and leave in the middle of the season, let alone commit to places. But yeah, it's just more uncertainty. Like you mentioned, Pierce, Tristan, when are they leaving? Are they leaving? The Owen Sound Attack actually lists the commitment, the schools next to their name in their roster sheet, and it's starting to look like alphabet soup. It's like every player's got 4 letters next to their name, whether it's Sacred Heart University, Lake Superior State, Bemidji, on and on and on, Bowling Green, Jake Crawford. So yeah, it's hard to keep track of it all.
The other part of your conversation with Dale, and you wrote about it, you mentioned it this morning, is that there is a chance, based on the timing of when the World Juniors ends and when the OHL trade deadline is, that possibly there's a chance, a small one, a chance. So you're telling me there's a chance that Carter George may have already played his last game in an Attack uniform. And I've seen on the various different Facebook pages and groups people dissecting the quote that Dale gave you when you talked to him the other day. To me, it looks like he literally has said nobody's called about him, and he doesn't seem to think that there's a market there. So what was kind of your take in talking to him in person? Was he kind of giving you any indication that something might happen, or and I know we've talked about it before on the Media Room Roundtable about Carter going. Seems like we're all in the camp that nobody thinks that this is going to happen. But what kind of a sense did Dale give you when you talked to him the other day?
Well, people have definitely called. I didn't mean to give that impression if I did. I think there was a quote in the story too where it's like people call and throw stuff to the wall and to see if something sticks. And those ones you kind of brush off. Other people put offers together that make you kind of think, and you have to look at it. It's interesting. This is kind of off topic from your question. I'll get back to it. But every year I ask Dale, give me some facts. I want to be able to report some facts. These trade deadline stories are fun when it's this might happen. Oh, this is looking like, this is interesting. Trends, but what are some facts? I'm not trading this guy. These guys are going to stay with the team. And usually there's a few. This year, 0. Even I asked, okay, what about your 5th overall pick, Max Delisle? And I hate bringing people's names up and adding stress to the already stressful time for people and families. But that was a guy I thought would be an untouchable. And I'm sure he's as close as an untouchable in the Owen Sound Attack as there is. But even though that one, Dale wouldn't say 100% fact, because he was driving home the point that you got to look at everything with so much uncertainty around the league and with so many calls being made and offers being made. So to get back to Carter George, I think that's where that process is right now. If you're asking me personally, I think I said on this podcast at the beginning of the season, I'm 99% sure Carter's going to get traded. And then they go on that tear to start the season. And I'm thinking, okay, well, if they're going to be playing like this, I think you keep Carter and you make a run for it. Now they've hit the skids a little bit and you're thinking, okay, now get what you can. Also, there's a few things in this. Carter has a say. I talked to him at the beginning of the season about it. He wants to win a championship. If he can't do that in Owen Sound, if it's not looking like that's going to happen in Owen Sound, Carter might be the one asking for a chance. And Dale's done that before with players. Hey, it doesn't look like it's going to happen here. We're going to start selling some assets. We did it with Nick Suzuki, Sean Jersey not too long ago. So that might happen. Secondarily, what are teams offering? Last year, Dale DeGray was very open in saying teams were sending ridiculous trade offers for Carter George. Now, mind you, he would have had an extra year this season to play on those teams. So those offers would be bigger than they are this season. But what's the market like? All the contending teams right now have pretty good goaltending if you look at the numbers and even just watch the games. There's a few out there, maybe, like I think Dale said in the story, who are going to put all their eggs in one basket, but that's the call that hasn't happened yet. People are calling, but that we need Carter George. We'll pay any price. Name it, call. He said hasn't happened yet. And that might be what it takes to pry him out of Owen Sound if he gets his druthers. I love using that word.
All right. I'll ask you a fun question. And I was sad that you weren't around for the Media Room Roundtable this past week because you were out covering the controversial Santa Claus Parade in Wyerton, where I read this week that apparently they had to have an emergency meeting because Santa left the float early. I don't know what's up with that, Wyerton. But
well, thanks to Scott Dunn for writing the wraparound story for us on that, because I completely missed that. That night I was covering the parade, and then I was going to get to the hockey game late to do a few interviews. Covered the parade. I was right where Santa got off the float, and because it was all set up there, this is not hockey related at all, but it's hilarious. They had the sleigh set up there for photos. I thought, this is where the parade ends. Of course, this makes a lot of sense. Santa's getting off. Didn't even think twice about it until Greg Hodendot with the Attack asked me Monday morning, what happened in Wyerton? And by that time, I was like, 6 stories away from it. So I was like, what do you mean?
You were right there, and you missed the big news scoop of the century in Wyerton.
That's why I cover sports mostly.
Well, the fun question that you missed answering was we asked about if the Attack should consider some jersey retirements in the future, and who might that be? Because the Attack have had a lot of guys who had great success in the OHL as members of Owen Sound, some of whom also went on to have great success in the NHL and are still having that great success, including Nick Suzuki. I imagine as his career continues to go, he might be somebody whose number gets retired way down the line. I mentioned that if Jordan Binnington wins the gold medal in February in Italy, we might be having a Jordan Binnington retirement ceremony next year because you want to get him in while he's hot. Erie Otters have certainly shown that even though McDavid is still playing, he can still retire his jersey and engage the fan base that way. And speaking of Suzuki, also cool this week, I saw that the Montreal Canadiens did a mentors game where the players could invite their mentors, and he invited Joey Hishin, which was cool. Mm-hmm. So I imagine maybe Hishin is one of the players you'd like to see, or who else do you think we should retire some jerseys and have some big nights and get these guys into the Bayshore again?
Do you remember what the other guys? I apologize, I hadn't listened to that episode yet. Do you remember what the names were?
Well, Matt brought up.
I didn't listen because I wasn't on it, of course.
Yes. Matt brought up a really good point that he's quite curious to know what the process involves in figuring out, determining who gets to have their number retired, and is it a number retirement, or is it more just like a banner hanging up in the rafters? Because that's honor has been bestowed upon a few members of the Attack formally, and it's not like they wear high numbers, so it might be a little tough if you start retiring these lower numbers. But I think Hishin was brought up. I believe Bobby Ryan was brought up, who I think is an obvious one now that his playing career is over. But then, of course, you get a lot of guys who had a little bit of success with Owen Sound, but then got moved for reasons that we just talked about. They had a chance to go and play for a championship elsewhere. So do you consider, the NHL as a determining factor of whether or not they get their jersey retired? Is it strictly success in the OHL and with Owen Sound? But Hishin, I believe, was brought up. Ryan was brought up. Binnington was brought up. And it escapes me who else was brought up at this point.
Yeah, well, and Matt's a smart guy, because that's exactly what I was thinking. If you start retiring numbers, and Owen Sound, famously one of the few teams that only allows players to wear numbers under 40, you're going to start digging into your number pool pretty soon. You're going to have to wear guys like wear like 17.5 or something like that in a decade or something, like over in Europe. But yeah, those were the guys that came to mind. Hishin came to mind right away. Bobby Ryan, Binnington, like you mentioned. I was trying to think, somebody like, if you're doing it for the success they've had in the pros, I don't necessarily agree that that's the way you should do it. I think you should keep it like, how much they meant to the community while they were here. But a guy like Jonah Gadjevich comes to mind with the Stanley Cup champions and championships, and he was a good player while he was here. yeah, so those guys are the ones that come to mind. I can't really think of. I hope I'm not, just throwing somebody on their bus completely. No one really comes to mind other than those guys as like the obvious ones. But I will say, going around to leagues, or sorry, excuse me, going to rinks around the leagues, there's lots of opportunities to recognize accomplishments. I don't like if you've seen a game in Barrie, they've got bangers hanging down, most goals, most points by a defenseman. They've got a banner on every steel beam, so maybe they overdo it. But I remember growing up going to games and watching the Brampton Battalion, and they had a banner for all their World Junior players from any country, which I thought was interesting. So as a kid looking up, you get to see all the names, some of them that you recognize that played for this program, the countries they're from. So aside from just retiring numbers, which is, one of the biggest honors you can bestow upon a hockey player, I think there's opportunities to put up banners for accolades that are maybe not as grand. But yeah, that would be my answer. I know it's not directly answering the question, but
yeah, well,
Joey Hisham.
All right. Next time we see Greg Hodnott, we'll corner him and be like, hey, we need to know, are we doing this? We gotta put some banners up in this place, make it look like the Kitchener Auditorium.
Yes, Kitchener's another one. But no, I will not be bugging Greg about that, because we got to get the inflatable bear back before anything else, any other business is taken care of in Owen Sound.
Yes,
that's what needs to be on Greg's desk 24/7.
Bigger fish to fry. You are correct. We do need that inflatable back. It gets the Bay Shore roaring.
Yeah,
no question about it.
Yeah, sorry, Joey. You'll have to wait.
Well, last thing I'll ask you about, because I think people need to follow you on Twitter, because you're hilarious on Twitter, or X as it's now called. I know we get to see some of the humor in your writing a lot, but you're very, very funny on Twitter. Did you get any heat over the whole Guelph is a shopping mall hosting the Memorial Cup, or were you having a lot of fun with that online?
It's funny, JC, New Year's resolution time is coming up, and every year I seem to have the same two resolutions: lose weight, be a bit more professional within my role as a professional sports reporter. And neither of those things ever seem to happen. I didn't hear about I didn't receive any personal, have some fun. See, that's my problem, is I think it's all fun and funny. If somebody takes it seriously and is absolutely enraged at me, I'll never know. It's Twitter, what's the point? But Larry messaged me, and Larry Malott, the great longtime radio broadcaster in Guelph, he was having fun with it. So that's where the Mallrats thing came from that they ran with. I said, congratulations to Larry and the Mallrats in response to his message. So, as long as Larry's having fun with it, it's all I care about. And it seems like, to Guelph's credit, to their social media teams or their admins' credit, they rolled with it, had fun. Their lineup that night, or the night after that, was the Mallrats. So, I just try to have fun on X and just have a good time. It's not real life.
Well, if they start selling Mallrats t-shirts, you should get a cut of it. I'm going to say that right now publicly.
I won't need a cut. That would just be amazing to see have happened.
Well, how can people follow you on Twitter or X if they don't already? What's your handle there?
Just search Mallrats. I'll be... Oh, it's at Greg Cowan ST for Sun Times. That's where you can also check me out too. Writing a lot for the Owen Sound Sun Times.
Perfect.
Still newspapers, people.
That's right. I still look forward to newspapers showing up. I still like to read the paper. Like, you get that ink on your hands. There's nothing else like it.
Oh, the physical paper. Wow.
Yeah.
You are old school.
A little bit, I guess. Greg Cowan, thank you so much for joining us on this Friday to give a little bit of insight into some of your recent works in the Sun Times. We appreciate it.
Anytime. Thank you, JC. Thank you.
Well, every couple of weeks, we look forward to a conversation with our old colleague from Rogers TV, Adrien Mousseau. This week, Adrien, of course, wanted to talk about what a lot of people in the junior hockey world are talking about, and that is the upcoming World Hockey Championships, the World Juniors. Carter George, currently at Team Canada's camp. We talked about the situation in the crease and what it might mean for Carter George going up against two pretty good goaltenders as well for that starter's job. We also talk about the makeup of the team. And also this week, the top prospects game was announced, and a couple of members of the Owen Sound attack are heading there to Peterborough in January to represent the team, Mbuyi and Cole Zurawski. So we chat about those two gents as well during this week's episode of Moose on the Loose. How are you today?
I'm doing just fine. We're recording on a Wednesday, December 10th, so we're just 15 days away from Christmas, but 16 days away from my favorite day of the year, the start of the World Junior Hockey Championship.
Ah, yes, Boxing Day. It's always fun when you get to watch our World Junior team go at it against the best in the world. And this year, we kind of have an idea who Canada might be taking because they just announced the rosters, the camp roster this week. Canada announcing they're going to take a few extra players just due to injuries and some guys with NHL commitments. So they will be making some cuts, not many. But I guess first off, no surprise to see the name Carter George on that Team Canada invite, Adrien.
I heard that Carter wasn't so sure if he was going to get invited or not, or maybe the family wasn't so sure that he was going to get invited because they hadn't heard. And it was good to see Carter's name on that list. For me, it's a no-brainer. Carter George is the most consistent goalie in Canada for the past 2 seasons. He was the starter at last year's World Junior Championships, and it was by no means his fault at all that Canada suffered in the quarterfinals. That was not on him whatsoever. He was their best player their entire tournament, and he had 2 player of the game's performances for that. So, yeah, Carter was a no-brainer. But with that being said, JC, I don't know if it's a no-brainer that he is the number one going on this year. His numbers aren't the greatest this season. I think Carter would be the first to tell you that he's not having the best statistical season for himself either. And then you're going against Jack Ivankovic, who is the University of Michigan goaltender, former Brampton Steelhead goaltender, and he's having a remarkable season at Michigan, under 2 goals against, over 930 save percentage. And then you have as well Joshua Ravensburg from the WHL's Prince George Cougars, who's coming into the pipes as well, who will want a game or 2 in this tournament, trying to steal from Carter George what is his net at this present time. So with everything that has happened on with the World Juniors team over the past couple of years, not being able to medal or not being able to find gold, I do think Carter will have a short leash, but I do think he will be the starting goalie on Boxing Day.
Yeah, he certainly has the resume, and that goes beyond just last year's World Juniors. I mean, he's appeared for Canada at different tournaments before, so and has been successful with teams that weren't heavily favored to win anything, and has taken them to gold medals. So, yeah, he might have a tough go, but definitely. They'll rely on his experience, and of course, it's a whole different team in front of him when it's Team Canada versus the Owen Sound attack. So,
yeah. And the one thing that I will add is, if I'm not a betting man, I used to be, not anymore. Gamble responsibly, but if I'm betting on anybody, I'm betting on Carter George. I'm putting all my chips in on Carter. I think he has the mentality. I think he has the talent, and I do think he has the drive to become Canada's best goalie. Right now at the senior level, Canada's having a hard time deciding on who's going to go, not because they have so much talent, because they have no talent. But I do think I see in the near future Carter George with Canada's logo at the Olympics one day on his chest. So for me, I'm putting all chips in. Carter George should be the guy. And again, I don't see him faltering at this tournament. Not now.
I think when you look at the roster that they've announced for the camp, there is not nearly as much criticism with this roster as we had last year. I mean, last year we were wondering, where's guys like Liam Greentree, where's guys like Zane Parekh, and they're there this year. So it would seem that those overlookings have now been corrected with this roster. It was said at the press conference earlier in the week that, this isn't necessarily an all-star team, but it's a team built to play like a team and to win. It kind of, looking down the roster, looks like a bit of a Hunter brothers team. Dale and Mark have obviously had a lot of input into this roster. But what are your thoughts overall on it, Adrien? Is there anybody that really surprises you? And are there any noticeable snubs that you thought when you looked at this roster, even compared to last year?
So when I just looked at it quickly when it first came out, I was like, "Oh, this is a good team. I really like the roster that's been assembled." And then you start to listen and you start to read other perspectives, and a lot of people were criticizing, saying it's a new regime at Hockey Canada, but it's the same old thing. We're not taking the best talented players. We're trying to construct a team and not just going in. And if you look at last year's team, Easton Cowan led the way in 5 games with a goal and 2 assists. He was the highest point getter. So when you think of that, like when you're trying to slot guys into the second, third, fourth role, well, that your typical fourth line player, maybe you're not taking the most skilled guy, but you want a guy that can block shots. So I do understand that perspective, but then I keep going at this team and I look at it and I think they've assembled a great team. I honestly think that Canada is the team to beat. And if you go and look at last year's game tapes from our broadcast on Rogers TV, I was adamant that I did not like Canada's construction of the team. I didn't think that it was good enough to win, and they faltered in the quarterfinals. Sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong, but that time I was dead right. I just did not think that they were a good enough team. Here, I love the construction of the team, and like you said earlier on, JC, is that 27 guys were invited, so they're still going to have to cut some guys. Of those 27, 7 can't play on Boxing Day because you can only field a 20-man roster to this tournament. So then, when I look at the guys you asked for notable snubs, I'll start with that. A lot of people listening to this podcast won't be familiar with the QMJHL, but there's one guy that's been lighting up the league this year, and his name is Justin Cagmano, and he's a first-round pick of the St. Louis Blues. And I did some digging on the RDS guys' Twitters of why he might have got snubbed from the team, and they say some things don't change with this kid. His work ethic is not there. He's a one-dimensional player, only plays in the offensive zone. That's why his stats are what they are. But when it comes to the defensive zone, he's not willing to get in front of pucks. He's not willing to do the little things that will help in the quarterfinals or semifinals. So for them, they were upset. Like the Quebec people were upset, but then came to realize when you did the digging into it, maybe he isn't a full-rounded player. And you look at this list of players, you got Jet Luchenko back on the team, Brady Martin, Liam Greentree, Braden Coates of the WHL. All these guys are willing and able to play in all facets of the game in all 3 zones. So I really enjoy that from Team Canada. One of the surprises that came on for me, not that he's a bad player and not that he isn't worthy of being on this team, and it kind of makes sense when you look at who the head coach is, but for me it was Sam O'Reilly. That is a guy that will be an NHL player and play on the third line, kill penalties, and just suffocate other players. Owen Sound fans know best. Sam O'Reilly is an attack killer. He seems to score clutch goals when they need it most. He doesn't have 1.5 points per game. He's about a point per game player in junior, which won't resonate to being a point per game player in the NHL. But right now, he is the most defensively sound player on this roster, in my opinion. And I think he will be Canada's 4th line center to begin the tournament. Another guy on the back end that kind of surprised me was Carson Carrolls. He's a 2008 born, undrafted, obviously, because he's going into his draft year, but he gets the call, and I'm just wondering, is he getting the call just to come to camp, or does he have a legitimate shot of making this team? And when you look at his stats on the year, he's having a very good season for a defenseman playing for the Prince George Cougars in front of Joshua Ravensburg. And he's got 8 goals, 21 assists for 21 points in 28 games, just in his second season in junior hockey. It is a really good start, but again, he's only a draft eligible prospect. So does he make the team, or is this just him soaking his feet into the water just to get a little okay, and we'll have basically a whole new crew come in next year, but he's had a little bit of experience, and especially with the NHL guys that could potentially be coming back is Harrison Barucki of Pittsburgh. You got Zane Parekh of the Calgary Flames. So what are they going to do with all these NHL guys? Michael Misa is potentially coming as well. Like Canada has a really high powered attack with all those guys in the lineup. It's really, really interesting how they're going to narrow this down. One of the guys that was a disappointment last year was Cole Baudouin of the Barrie Colts, but now he's almost averaging 2 points per game this season. So I'm like, he was disappointing last year at the tournament. What can he bring this year? Can he jump on? They really tried to have him on that first line last year, and it just didn't work out. So what can he bring to the tournament? Experience is definitely going to be key, and knowing how to deal with adversity. That's what him, Jet Luchenko, Carter George, who else was returning from last year's team? Quickly, there's one more. Gavin McKenna. So those are and Porter Marton. Those are the returning players, and they'll have to draw on their experience going into this tournament.
There are still some wild cards, and those are guys that are currently in the NHL playing big roles that could, at the last minute, be released and loaned to Team Canada. And I was just curious, Adrien, if you think that any of these are likely. I don't think that Macklin Celebrini or Matthew Schaefer are likely, although they are eligible. Ben Kindle.
I heard Macklin Celebrini is going to be at the World Juniors. Yeah, that's what I heard.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. There's no way.
I was like, what source do you have?
He's lighting up the NHL. There's absolutely no way Macklin Celebrini is playing for Team Canada. It's kind of crazy to say. I'll let you continue, but it's kind of crazy when you look at it. Like Macklin Celebrini, who has over a point per game in the NHL, is still eligible for World Juniors.
Yeah, he's eligible. Ben Kindle of the Penguins, Beckett Seneca of the Ducks are eligible. Berkeley Catton of the Kraken, and another Shark, Sam Dickinson, who I would think probably is the most likely of that group to play for Canada. I'm sure the Hunters are going to call in a favor and get him back there. But any of those guys coming back, do you think? Are there any chances? Obviously not Schaefer and Celebrini, but anybody else?
Schaefer, Celebrini, Seneca, 0% chance on all of those. Seneca's the highest scoring rookie this year. He's so important to the Ducks. There's no way Beckett's going to be on that team, which is sad because he could have made last year's team. He was so skilled, but nope, they decided not to. And then Ben Kindle might have a chance. I would put it very low. I know that the Seattle Kraken came out and said that Berkeley Catton is not being loaned, so there's no chance of him, which leaves us to Sam Dickinson. And he started the year off with a lot of minutes. The Sharks started off about 500. They've kind of tailed lately. So if you're sending Misa, do you want to send Dickinson too? Dickinson played in the tournament last year. Does he need it or does he need NHL work? That's going to be the big decision that San Jose Sharks make. I don't see anybody else being loaned, personally.
All right. So a pretty strong team. You've kind of already mentioned that it does appear to be the team to beat. Anybody else so far from the rosters that we've heard and the announcements we've heard from the other teams? Is there anybody that can beat Canada, do you think?
Yes, I really like the Sweden team. I think Sweden is could be the team to beat, actually. They have good goaltending, they have good defense, and their forward group, especially up the middle with Anton Frundell, going to be the main cog on that team. It could be very, very lethal. So I look for Sweden in that regard. And then I saw a little thing, and it was in the summertime, Canada played Finland, and Finland had only 5 drafted players. Canada's team was all drafted players with current NHL guys on the team with Michael Misa, Matthew Shaver, and Finland dominated that game. I believe it was 6-1 in the summertime. So Finland is never a joke, especially at these tournaments. They play hard. They play a good system. They play together rather often during the season with little U20 tournaments in Europe. So another team just to keep an eye on is Finland. I don't think Team USA is going to be that strong this year. They're going to have really good defense led by Cole Hudson, Lane Hudson's brother, and then they'll have some good forwards as well. Will Horkoff will be the one to watch up front, son of Sean Horkoff, who plays for the University of Michigan, teammates with Michael Hage, who is on Team Canada. So he'll be a good player to watch as well in the tournament, but they just don't have the goaltending that they had in years past. Trey Augustine was the starter for the past 2 years. Jacob Fowler was the backup last year. They just don't have that goaltending in the system right now. So I think that will be their downfall. But then when it comes to Finland, Sweden, I really do like those two teams to make an upset. And then you look at Czechia as well, they're never an easy out. So I do think the team to beat is Team Canada. I'll stick with that, and then I'm gonna go with Sweden to be the runners up of the tournament, or maybe the guys that upset Canada. I really do like Sweden.
All right. We'll move on to another announcement that was made this week, and that is the Top Prospects game. It has a name now. It belongs to Connor McDavid. The Top Prospects game this year being hosted on Valentine's Day at the Peterborough Memorial Center. Is it Valentine's Day or January 14th? I might have had that wrong. January 14th, I think is the date of the Top Prospects game. Some of the rosters, the highlights for the Eastern Conference include guys like Adam Novotny, Adam Levesque, Caleb Maholtra, Brooks Rogowski from the Oshawa Generals. Over on the West, you've got some A-rated skaters like Chase Reed, Ethan Belchez, Alessandro Diorio, Nikita Klepov, Zachary Jovanovski, just to name a few. And you've got a couple of attack mixed in, Pierce Mbuyi and Cole Zurawski. What were your thoughts on the rosters and who was named, and was there anybody missing?
I'm not too sure if there was anybody notably missing. I know last year we kind of complained as the attack core that potentially Jake Crawford wasn't there, and but Kaprowski and Bedkowski were both there representing the attack. But I just want to focus more on Pierce and Cole and what they're doing for the attack this season with all the injuries that have came about and the departure of Landon Hookie. It was kind of a mystery of what Pierce Mbuyi would be able to do without his big man on his side. And yeah, the emergence of Tristan Delisle has been very nice, and they had chemistry last season on that line. But Pierce has really stepped up his game and showed that he can be a player not only in the OHL, but internationally or at the NHL level in his future. So he is very diminutive, 5'10", 158 pounds he's listed as, but I think that will come with time. I mean, Mitch Marner was a small guy, but what Pierce does well is he's so tenacious. He loves to go in the corners, he loves to get in the mix, and he's not afraid to go to the front net, and that's where he scores the majority of his goals. Yeah, he has a good shot and he can score from distance, but it's really when he puts the nose to the grindstone that Pierce is at his best. And it's a event like this that Pierce is really going to make a name for himself. Because right now he's touted not even to be a first round draft pick, but he's reigning OHL Rookie of the Year. He's over a point per game this season. And like, let's be honest, like without Pierce in the lineup, Owen Sound wouldn't be where they are today. And I know that's a true fact about a lot of top end players, but he's only in his second year of the OHL, and he's leading this team not only in points, but always with his compete level. Everything runs through him, and everything runs through Carter. So the way that he's been playing this season has been truly remarkable, and I really hope that scouts are able to see how good of a player Pierce Mbuyi is, and that he skyrockets up the charts, because I truly think he's a mid-round NHL first-round talent. And then when you look at Cole Zurawski, I mean, I said it from the get-go, this guy has an absolute lethal shot. Like, you watch one shift of him and he releases his shot, you're in shock. It's an NHL ready shot already. The way that he comes down the wing, he pulls the puck into his feet, and he releases either through or around defensemen just to go bar down on goalies to make them look silly is incredible. His shot from distance is the best, if top 5 in the OHL right now, and he's again in his second year in the league. So I'm really happy that Pierce and Cole were able to get selected for this game. And the one thing that people kind of knock, scouts might knock Cole's game for is his skating and Pierce's as well. But you'll see in these games that they're up to par. They are not slow skaters by no means. They're very intellectual players, get to the right spots of the ice and do what they do best. Cole knows he's a shooter. He'll shoot the puck. Pierce knows that he's nose to the grindstone playmaker, can kind of do it all. He'll do it all in that game. And I really hope that they show what they can do on this stage, because it's another event just to put your name out there, because 32 teams will have scouts and general managers at that game, because there's no league like the OHL that pumps out and produces top-end prospects, and this is a top-end prospects type of showcase.
If both those guys continue on the trajectory that they're on right now, which is upwards, do you see them potentially both going in the first round? Do we have 2 first-rounders on this team?
I think that Cole has a lot to do defensively before he's a first-round talent. I do see him going in the top 60 players of the draft, which is no slouch.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if he can, because a lot of the scouting's already been done. There's only so much more scouting left to do. You're kind of just the scouts are just reaffirming what they already know nowadays. So it'll be interesting to see if he's able to crack that top 32, but I find it more unlikely than not.
Okay. Adrien, anything else you want to cover off this week for Moose on the Loose?
There's nothing in particular. I'm really looking for the World Juniors. JC, maybe we can get on again. I know I'm on bi-weekly, but I would like to get on right before the World Juniors, kind of go down my predictions of the World Junior Hockey Championships. Again, it's my favorite time of the year. I usually have a little hockey pool, World Juniors hockey pool that I have family and friends participate in. So if anybody reaches out via the Instagram page there, I'll be happy to send them over a copy of the competition there. JC's been a part of it for a few years now. It's a lot of fun.
All right. Well, we'll get you scheduled in then before the World Juniors starts, which might mean we have to record this on Christmas Eve maybe, but hey, what better thing to talk about than the World Juniors on Christmas Eve? So we'll figure out a time here and get you back again once we've got all the rosters and everything finalized. But appreciate your time today, sir. Always looking forward to these chats, and we'll have another one again real soon.
All right. You guys take care up there in Grey County.
Well, there you have it. A road trip edition of the podcast comes to an end. Thank you so much to both of our guests this week, Greg Cowan and Adrien Mousseau, for making time to chat. Really do appreciate it, guys. And thank you to you for listening to this podcast. Wherever you get your podcasts, make sure you like and subscribe. Always appreciate the feedback, whether it's online or in person. Always nice to hear from people when I'm at the Bay Shore working with the Rogers TV crew who listen to this podcast. So do leave any feedback, and make sure you follow us in all the different places on social media, and of course on YouTube as well. We broadcast there, and on Rogers TV Grey County. Big thank you to Pat, producer Pat, for making sure that the video version of this podcast gets on TV every week. Again, thank you so much for joining us this week. Coming up next week, the Owen Sound Attack have their final game at the Bay Shore before Christmas. The opponent, the London Knights. And then an Attack will be in Kitchener next Friday night to finish off before the holiday break against the Rangers. As of now, my plan is to go to Kitchener next Friday night and grab some final interviews before the holiday break. I should probably add weather permitting, hopefully it's better than it was between Owen Sound and Barrie this week weather-wise. But planning to go to Kitchener Friday. We'll definitely be at the Bayshore on Wednesday night when the London Knights are in town. You can get your tickets. We hope for a nice loud building for the boys. Get your tickets at attackhockey.com. Thank you again for listening, and we will see you at the rink. Cheers.
The Bear Tracker podcast is produced in association with Blackburn Media from the CKNX studios in Wingham, Ontario. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe at Bear Tracker Pod on social media and wherever you get your podcasts.